Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I really wanted to talk about something that I personally am very, very excited about. And we've talked a little bit before, but I've been going back and rewatching The Walking Dead Season 5 and at least those 2 episodes so far. And honestly, like the survival aspect to it's such a integral part of The Walking Dead story that I do want to see some more stories just with that. And I saw this article, I was actually talking about this here. Andrew Lincoln said, this is about a month ago, but he said, there's infinite chance for The Walking Dead, the ones who live season 2, under one condition. And so I want to talk about what he said, talk about something that he recently said, and this was probably about 3 weeks ago. And I want to talk about this whole survival story and like what they could actually do with it. Because honestly, when you watch The Walking Dead season 5, specifically episodes 10 and 11, they're really, really great episodes, just really phenomenal survival stories. And it really was like, I don't know if they could ever get back to that, but that's what I want to talk about. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. I'm actually really interested in going to watch the Bike Riders movie. I have a little bit of time today where I might be able to actually go and watch that today, but I would like to know how much Norman Reedus is actually in the movie, because I imagine he's not like the main character, which is fine, but I hope that it's more than just that one scene. Like if it is just that one scene, then maybe I won't go and watch it, but if it's more than that, then I think, yeah, I probably would go and watch it, because it's an interesting premise, and I like movies like this, and then maybe I'll do a review afterwards. So yeah, let me know. I mean, if you guys have seen it, let me know your thoughts. But this article here gets into a lot of stuff. There's actually quite a bit of things with just like Gimple and stuff, and his comments and all of that in terms of, you know, just like his next story, I guess, with Rick and Michonne. Andrew Lincoln, though, first of all, about 3 weeks ago, he did say, you know, that the next part of Rick's story, where he would like it to go anyways, is more in a simplistic survival horror direction, which I really like that he said that, because I can keep quoting that exact thing that he said, because it really sums up exactly, you know, I guess probably the direction of the next story, right? But Andrew Lincoln had this to say here. He said, there are other very important characters in the universe that are still wandering around and alive that I think it might be quite exciting to have them breathe the same air and see how long they survive together. But it's a difficult one. It would have to be like this, a really exciting story. And based off of the, you know, the cast interviews and all that, I really am under the impression that they will bring Rick and Michonne back for another story. It is just a matter of when. Like, who knows when it's actually going to happen. I feel like maybe, you know, maybe they want to take a break for like a year or two or something, right? Who knows? Or maybe they just want things to settle for like the next year, and then next year they come up with something. Like, you know, Gimple already has a story. He's already confirmed that, you know, he has this idea of where things can go. And I think he's probably, you know, talking with Denai Guerrera about it, talking with Andrew Lincoln about it. And I think, you know, the direction of simplistic survival horror is something that would be really exciting. And the reason why I want to talk about it in this video here is because of what he says here. He says that there are other very important characters in the universe that are still wandering around and alive, that I think it might be quite exciting to have them breathe the same air and see how long they survive together. But it's a difficult one. It would have to be like this, a really exciting story. So the story does have to be obviously great. And everyone says that, like even on Dead City and Daryl Dixon, everyone says that. You know, Lauren Cohen said that, right? She was like, if the story's great and I can continue to evolve with the character, then I'll keep doing this. Or like, there's no reason this needs to end, right? Like regarding Dead City, you know, like that's sort of the part to it is if the characters can continue to evolve in really exciting ways, being pushed in certain directions, and then having the story really exciting and just doing things that you never did before, then yeah, they're always going to keep doing it. You know, they don't want to come back and do the same thing. And I think that's the difference now versus when they were on the show, like The Walking Dead. Like, yes, season to season, they would push to go in different directions, but it was a little different because you sort of had to stay with where you ended things off, and there would still be the same overall tone of the show. And I just think things are a little bit different now because you can tell these like little chapters, like these stories here and there, right? And I think that's what's more interesting to them is they love the characters and that's why they want to come back, but they want the story to be really great. Like, I could honestly see them doing 3 or 4 like spin-off series, like on Rick and Michonne, right? Like doing like these little chapters here and there, but just like these stories or whatever, right? And maybe the next story is more focused on horror, right? Like survival or simplistic survival horror. And then I could see after that, you know, them maybe going in a different direction, depending on, you know, how they felt about that or just where things could go. Like, it's really going to depend on all of that there. But I think it's exciting that Andrew Lincoln said that one aspect to it, because you know that that is something. And I remember that being a quote like that came out around the time The Ones Who Live was airing, where Andrew Lincoln said something like, there's been discussions, or like we talked about that because of there are other characters, like reuniting with those other characters, would be really cool. And so, that was something that they talked about, right? Like in terms of reuniting with those characters, like when do we do it? Do we do it in The Ones Who Live? No, because they're doing all these other things. Okay, well, we'll probably have to do it at some point later on, and we'll have to come up with a story for that, right? So, it is a plan. Like, they are going to eventually do it. What I like, though, is that Andrew Lincoln said that having those characters breathe the same air again and see how long they can survive together. That to me is so exciting because like, I don't know how the Daryl Dixon show and like Dead City and all that's going to go. It really, like, I'm under the impression that they are, for sure 4 to 5 seasons is something that they want to do. And then at that point, we'll see what happens in terms of the ratings and all that, right? We're really going to be going season to season, and we'll know based off of where the story is at if, like, it's the last season sort of thing and, like, what is happening after that, right? But I think for the next couple of years here, up until 2026, 27, these shows are for sure going to be coming out, and then we'll see at that point after that. But to have these characters in sort of an endgame spinoff in some way, I think would be really cool. I think it would be so cool to see all of them together, but to get them into that, simplistic survival horror setting, I mean, it's not going to take a lot to do that. You do got to reunite them, and you do want to make the story not feel as big, I feel like, as the CRM arc, because like there is like part of, a lot of the fans and whatnot that do like that. They really like how big the CRM arc was. And I really did like that too, at least in episode 1 and 2. 3 and 4, like really honestly, a lot of that series, it was a lot of fun. But episode 1 specifically, you just really felt like, wow, this is really, the CRM are just incredible, right? But that was always the issue though going forward, is like, how can you continue that forever? Because if Rick can never leave, and even if Michonne is there and they can never leave or talk, like, in terms of watching the episodes, they're just going to get so boring because they can never talk, or they're always going to have to sneak around. And if Morgan got there, like they're going to be sneaking around too, just to try and talk, or like anything, So like them escaping and ending this arc, it was something that needed to be done. Like, it really needed to be done, because like there was just no way they were going to be able to continue that forever. I mean, I will say there's still stuff with Major General Beale and a lot of that I feel like they shouldn't have ended. I think you could have gotten around it, but we've talked about that a lot. My point is, I think going forward, you do have to focus more on, bringing it back down to the basics again, which is what Gimple has been talking about, Andrew Lincoln has been talking about. And I think it would be cool to see Rick, Judith, Michonne, Carol, Daryl, like everyone, back together and just trying to survive together. I don't know where you go with that. And that's my thing too, is like, it kind of feels like the next logical step in the story is just having Rick and Judith together, right? Like quite a bit. So I don't know if you want to bring back everyone immediately, because I think you would want to focus on scenes between Rick and Judith, just like one-on-one time, just them talking about like Carl, even talking about Lori, because Judith might have questions about Lori, and then Rick can talk about Lori and whatnot, because I'm sure Judith has so many questions there, like anyone would, right? Like anyone, as soon as you start to get older and you start to question like just, your own history in the world and whatnot, like you're going to have questions about a lot of these things here. And so it makes sense that, she would ask Rick, like, who was Carl's mom? And like, I'm guessing that's my mom, and like, what was she like? And then the whole Shane thing, like, I don't know if that would ever come up. I don't know if Rick would ever say anything. Like, that would make it so awkward. But again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Their parents are Rick and Michonne. But I think just those big conversations, like those are things that you want to see Rick and Judith just bond over, right? And just also not even that stuff, just them surviving out there, just them sort of living life and whatnot. Like, we do want to see a lot more of that. And to get back into, the next part of the story here, it does have to feel a lot more organic. And I think that's where Varian Walkers could come into play. I think that would be something that would make sense in terms of all of them trying to survive together, right? Like Daryl being back in America and whatnot, and they're all trying to survive. And again, like, you can be away from where they're at, because the Varian Walkers, they don't have to come and destroy like, the Commonwealth or Alexandria and whatnot. Like, it could be something that they're dealing with somewhere just sort of separate, right? But I just feel like before you get into any of that, you have to introduce or reintroduce certain other characters back into the story, like Morgan specifically. I think Morgan has to reunite with Rick before Daryl reunites with Rick. I feel like Daryl's the last character to reunite with him, but all the other characters need to reunite with Rick first and have those scenes, right? And I just feel like the next part of the story is something involving Rick, I guess, helping out Morgan. Maybe Morgan's in trouble available somewhere. And Rick and Michonne right now, they're helping out people. Like, they're with the CRM, they're giving supplies to people and all of that. And maybe, the place they go to, that's where Morgan is, right? Or maybe Dwight's there because we know he was going to the sanctuary, and maybe, just handing out supplies to the sanctuary just to help them out. Like, that would be such a crazy thing for Rick to do. But maybe that part of the story comes back into play. Like, there's a lot of places that they can go. There's so many places that they're able to go here. But again, you need to focus more on the simplistic survival horror aspect to it. You don't want to go back to stories like that with the saviors and all that. I don't think Andrew Lincoln necessarily wants to. I think he wants it to be a very brand new, very unique story, focused more on the horror aspect, making zombies scary again. And yeah, I think that should just be their main focus overall, is just on that aspect to all of this here. So Andrew Lincoln talking about this here, it just got me thinking, because again, I watched season 5, episode 10 and 11, and I really missed those aspects to The Walking Dead, that survival aspect where things were just so hard, right? Like just to get anywhere, just to try and survive, it was so difficult. And it's hard because I don't know how they get back to that part to it, because back then, the whole thing about that back then is they didn't know anything like Alexandria existed, right? But now these characters know that all of these places exist. They know that the CRM exists. They know that, I'm sure they're going to be aware of the Commonwealth existing, right? They can go back to Alexandria. Alexandria is like the least of these places in terms of resources, right? So they can like go back and they have all these options to survive and be in these other places. And, I feel like at some point, do you just tear it all down again? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where the story is going to go next, because that survivalistic place, like, you need to find a way to make it make sense to go back there and have these characters like, we don't know what we're going to do kind of thing, right? And I do wonder if, bringing things back down to a place where, it is really hard to survive. And that's the thing that's hard, though, is like doing that again. You don't want the world to be in that state where no one can survive and there's no places to go, right? Because then it sort of takes away a lot of like other spin-off ideas or other stories that you're able to do. Like, look at Dead City, right? Like, there's New Babylon and all of that. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So you would need to come up with a really good story that makes sense with the world and the state of the world, and somehow have it more focused on like that survival aspect. And that's why, to me, when I go through all of that, the Varian Walker aspect makes the most sense, because everything is sort of kind of normal and it is what it is. Variant Walkers being there in America would be terrifying, and it would change everything, because to survive now, like, everything is going to be different, right? And I think that could be a really exciting next step here in the story, is dealing with that and trying to survive. Like, you're going to be hiding behind walls now, because those walkers were absolutely insane, right? Maybe the CRM, they block off all their walls and stuff. They don't allow people in and all that because of this new threat. Like, there's so many places that they can go with this, that they could introduce an entirely new group and all of that, right? Like, I think that's why, again, the Varian Walkers to me is just, it makes sense. It's like the perfect next step here to making things feel very scary again, right? So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, post your thoughts down below. Where do you think the next part of the story here is going to go? Would you like to see them go back to like the season 5 survival type of story, right? Where they're just on the road trying to get to a place, there's no food and water, and things are just like really, really hard, and they're having a hard time just surviving in general. Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.